What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Just got back from the gym. Now I'm just gonna do a quick pre-workout or post-workout meal. So I'm gonna have some eggs. I pre-prepped the potatoes already and the broccoli, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of hummus to it. So I'll just show you guys how I do that. So I got a pan here. This is my favorite non-stick pan. Literally so clutch. Nothing sticks to it. So I've been making my eggs apparently wrong all this time. I was cooking my eggs too hot, like on too hot of a heat, and then it was actually overcooking the eggs. And by the time I got to them, honestly guys, I would do that because that would make the eggs stick the least. Like I put the pan on super hot, wait till the pan actually got really hot, then add the eggs in. But I was actually learning through just a random day when I decided to make my eggs differently that I was actually overcooking my eggs, and I changed the way that I'm cooking my eggs, and honestly it's changed my life. It tastes so much better. So don't assume you know everything, because I was eating my eggs that same way for like probably years, guys. And not until recently, like a month ago, did I start making it this new way. And honestly, it's changed my life. So I'm gonna do some eggs and some egg whites. I just got these egg whites from Costco. Alright, now all that shuffling through the fridge is done. I'm gonna try to speed things up here because the pan's gonna start to get hot. So I just got some potatoes that I prepped in the oven, guys. Literally just sliced them up, threw a bunch of seasonings. I can make a video on how I prep my potatoes. I think this is the best way that I made my potatoes ever. I think just the seasonings that I added was the big change, because I added a few different seasonings that I wouldn't typically add. Got some broccoli that I obviously pre-cooked. So I'm doing 200 grams of potatoes. And honestly, you can do however much you want. Just kind of depends what you're eating for the day. And just like 100 grams of broccoli, 110. Because I'm gonna have another meal, which is gonna be the same thing, but instead of the eggs, I'm gonna use ground beef. So I'm gonna get more veggies in throughout the day. If not, I would probably added like maybe 150 grams of broccoli. So I'm gonna stick this in the microwave. And now I'll do the egg portion. So I'm gonna crack 2 eggs and then do about 100 egg whites. Getting confused here. So I typically do it on this side, so I'm just gonna do it over here because I like to crack the egg on the stove. So I got 2. I know some people talk about, are you an egg cracker on a blunt surface? Like, do you use a spoon? Or are you an egg cracker on a flat surface? I used to be a spoon egg cracker, but now I'm a flat surface egg cracker. And this is how I weigh my egg whites, guys. I kind of roughly know how much 100 grams is. I put the container on, zero it, pour a bunch. 93. Alright, now I'm going to add a little bit of mustard into the egg mixture. Yes, you heard that right. A little bit of hot sauce. I think one of these will go well with this meal. So like I said, this is a post-workout meal. So you're gonna want a good mix of carbs, fats, and protein. Whereas I'd say for the pre-workout meal, you probably want more so just protein and carbs. You don't want a ton of fat. I think it really depends on the person. Some people benefit better with, I guess, different macronutrients, but I just find that if you eat too much fat before you train, then you're gonna feel kind of sluggish, and you definitely want carbs. And I would say you pretty much want protein in increments all kind of throughout the day. So in that, I guess, that meal, you would most likely be eating protein anyways, because most meals probably contain a little bit of protein. So usually just protein and carb is kind of the way I go. So I just had a bowl of oatmeal with some apples that I baked in the oven. So yeah, it was pretty much just carbs and protein, and yeah. And so this is gonna be a nice balance of all three macronutrients, because you have the fat from the egg yolks and protein from the eggs, and then carbs from the potatoes. So I'll just whip this up. So the trick here that I kind of changed with the way that I do things is I now cook my eggs on much lower of a heat. And for this to work, I believe you need a very good non-stick pan. If you get a very good non-stick pan, then what the key is here, cook it on a lower heat and stir it pretty frequently. And then your eggs will actually get cooked properly and not overdone. So I'm just stirring here, kinda just, then I'll let it cook for a little bit and then keep stirring it, and then it gets done honestly pretty quickly, because I like my eggs still a little bit soft, definitely cooked, but just a little bit soft. I just find that they taste a lot nicer, much better flavor, better texture, everything about it's just better. So I'm just gonna mix this up here. And then once I put the eggs on top of all of this, I'll throw the hummus, and that'll be the finishing touch. So I'm just gonna whip all this together, and that's pretty much it. The hummus that I'm using is just a hummus from Costco. I'm just gonna do about a serving, so like 30 grams. Again, the easiest way to typically weigh out stuff from containers is you put it on the scale, turn on the scale, then you scoop out of the container, and whatever the minus is of grams, that's what the measurement is. And yeah, so I'll see you guys with this meal. Just gonna set up the YouTube here, and then when I'm done kind of chatting, I'll hop on here and watch a little YouTube, see what's happening in the YouTube fitness bodybuilding world. So guys, I did back today. So I'm doing a new workout split. I did back, a little bit of rear delt, or I should say rear delt, and traps, a little bit of traps. So I did, started with a one arm pull down on that like lat pull down machine. And I pretty much always start with that. It's like usually my go-to. So I started with that. I kind of got a bit of a kink in my upper back leading into like my trap and my neck. I think it was more of like an overuse kind of injury. So I've been kind of like deloading pretty much. I could take days off the gym, but I'm honestly a little bit too stubborn. And it's not a major kink in my back. It's just like a small, I would say it's more of a tweak. Like I'm tweaking instead of like an actual like injury. So I've decided not to take necessarily time off the gym, but I'm kind of like using this as a deload week. So I'm hitting the gym, but I'm not doing nearly as much volume. I'm not nearly going as intense, and I'm not doing as many reps, not doing as much weight. Like you kind of get the idea. not doing as much sets and everything. It's just basically like an easy version of my workouts. Very much so just to kind of work the muscle a little bit, get some blood into the area. And I think, I don't know, this might be some bro science, but I know somebody might be like, oh, it's better to rest it, but I kind of am resting it because I'm not necessarily stressing out the muscle too much and stressing out that area. I'm not necessarily trying to build muscle in this phase of time. But what I am doing is I'm trying to work that muscle group, get a little bit of blood in there. And the more blood you get to the area, the more oxygen and nutrients you get to the area, you remove waste, better blood flow is just better recovery, I think. And yeah, that's kind of my method behind it. If I just do light, so I'm getting some like a light pump in there. I by no means had like a crazy pump or anything like that, but I did feel the workouts, the exercises, and yeah, I think it might actually help me with my recovery. And sometimes, like, I don't know, it's like you use it or you lose it in a sense. Like when something's hurt, you use it a little bit, but you just don't go as like hard, and you might end up like kind of fixing out the tweaks or whatever. Obviously, if you broke your arm or something like that, I don't expect you to hit the gym to get increased blood flow in your broken arm to recover, but this is something that I think was fair to do. So I started off with that. And then I went into the seated row machine, but I did one arm again, and I do underhand. I used to do like when I do the pull down, I actually do a hammer grip to start, and then I pull it down and I twist to a supinated grip, so palms facing me. And for the seated row one, I'm doing palms facing me, like this, underhand, not overhand. I used to do the twisting grip that I do on the pull down for the seated row, but I kind of just feel like it's more comfortable to just do the underhand. I just feel like you get a better kind of like stretch. And even when I was doing like barbell rows, I switched recently to start doing underhand barbell rows because I saw this thing where Phil Heath was actually talking about the fact that he prefers underhand over overhand. And I've pretty much always done overhand, but I realized that like you can actually like target your back in terms of like not having your forearms tire out too much better when you go underhand because you're using more bicep obviously instead of like a ton of forearm. And also like when bodybuilders pose their back, they're usually pulling back like this, and they're not pulling back like this pronated with their palms down, and they're pulling back supinated with their palms up. So supinated, pronated, right? So when you're training your back, if that's the way that you would flex it to show it, why not train your back like that? And obviously like different grips, different angles is always good, and you can always like mix and match things, and that's fine. But I decided to do underhand. I just feel like you can manage the weight a little bit better, and it's just comfortable. I feel like you can just get a better stretch on it, a better squeeze. So I kind of recently started doing that. Then I jumped over to, so I basically was just I wasn't doing any sets anywhere near failure, not the same amount of weight that I typically do. Just very light, like I said, just to kind of get a light pump. So I was pretty much doing like 2 to 3 working sets. I think on the pull down I did, since that was the first exercise, I warmed up on the treadmill for like 10 minutes and got kind of warm because now that it's getting cold, I like to warm up with a little bit of cardio before I hop into the weights, and then I'll do, especially for the first exercise, I'll do a few more warm-up sets before I get into my working sets. And that's just because it's getting colder, whereas in the summer I could walk into the gym, start with an exercise and just warm up with the exercise and then get into my working sets. But I find that with it getting so cold, I prefer to start with a bit of cardio first. So I did that treadmill, just kind of like a normal pace, just walking. I think it was like on an incline of like 6, speed of like 3.2, whatever it takes you to get kind of warm, because I don't want to be on the treadmill for any more than like 10-15 minutes. So whatever it takes that day to kind of get me going and get me warm. And I usually wear the pump cover. I usually got the wife beater underneath and some sort of a pump cover. And then I had this over because it was pretty cold. So I actually started on the treadmill with this, and then I stripped this off, and then I did a couple of warm-up sets with the weights with the pump cover. And then when I got the pump, wasn't the best pump, but because I wasn't going nearly as intense as I typically do, then you take the pump cover off. But yeah, so like did a few warm-up sets on the pull downs after the 10 minutes on the treadmill. Then I did the 2 working sets, I believe, on the single arm pull down. And then I moved to the seated row where I did, I think, 3 sets. And I'm doing anywhere like, usually like 12 to 15 reps, guys. That's typically my kind of rep range. I find, especially that I'm doing this light pump kind of session today, I definitely don't want to go heavy enough to where it's like a 10 rep, 8 rep set. But if I wasn't doing this, I might hit somewhere around 8 to 10 for like a heavy set, because I usually like to go basically to failure on a heavy set, do anywhere from 8 to 12, and then I do kind of like a back off set, and I'll do anywhere from like 10 to 15 on that one. So after the row, I went over and I did seated row. Yeah, seated. So I did seated row. So this is the like a machine row. It's just the one that they have at my gym. And I did a hammer grip style. And this time, since the seated row kind of targets more the lower kind of area of your back, I guess that'd be like kind of like back here. I wanted to hit something for the kind of like the lower trap area, kind of like the mid just above that kind of back area. Like at least that's where the emphasis is, because when you're doing back exercises, even though the emphasis might be on a certain area, you are still kind of training most of your back, unless we're talking like vertical pull movements versus horizontal pulling movements. Then you're typically working width versus like thickness pretty much in general. But again, you are kind of training everything. Obviously, if you're doing a pull down, you basically are just training your lats. You're not really going to be training like your lower traps, but you probably are like a little bit still activating that area. And then if you're doing a rowing exercise that targets like a certain area of your back, then you're obviously probably still using a bit of your lats, but you're not going to get super wide working a ton of rows, as opposed to if you did a bunch of like vertical pulling. So just something to keep in mind. So I did that hammer style, right? And I typically do really slow on the eccentric, slight pause, and then without momentum, snapping at like the wrist or the hand, and then a little bit of a chest, keeping my butt back and my chest on the pad, or like kind of like here on the pad, like almost like my upper ab area, and then bringing the chest back like that. So it's basically, but I don't start the movement like that. I don't know if this is correct, but typically, like technically a strict movement would be like this, right? So I crack here, and when I'm getting close to the top, I just pull back a bit, but I am typically still keeping this area on the pad. This is something that I learned from Mike Van Wyck, and just kind of like through Fuad Abiad and their podcast. So I just kind of learned like kind of like rocking. I think they call it like rocking with the weight or whatever. And so I'm rocking basically with that weight, but keeping this part of my body on the pad, and like my upper kind of chest here kind of comes off just for the squeeze at the top. But the key for me is not cracking like this first. It's cracking like that and then finishing. I don't know if that's right, but that's the way that I do it. Because technically the strict form would be like this. But I find that when I get to the top, if I just do this a little bit more, I feel more activation in my back. So that's what I do at the end. So I did some of those, kind of played with the seat height a little bit so I could hit kind of like that lower trap just above kind of area, like just below the upper traps, kind of like lower mid-back, or not lower mid-back, mid-back and just a bit above lower trap kind of area. I did like 3 sets there, I believe, nice and slow, or 2 sets or whatever. And then I did some shrugs just on the Smith, not the Smith. This gym that I have has like these guided barbell kind of setups. They're similar to Smiths, but they're not like locked in a plane. They're able to move more freely, but they're still guided. but they're a little bit heavier than like a Smith barbell, so the weight distribution, the weight increments is a little bit different or whatever. But anyways, it's similar to a Smith basically, so I did my shrugs on that. I just did one plate, super light, 12 to 15 reps just to squeeze, because again, I kind of kinked that area anyways, but I just wanted to get a little bit of blood in there. Did a little bit of rear delt, reverse pec deck action. I think I did 4 sets there because I only did 1 rear delt exercise for the day. And then I did a little bit of cardio at the end, 10 minutes on the treadmill, same kind of speed, maybe a little bit less than what I warmed up with. And that was pretty much it. So I'm just kind of working with an injury right now. I'm just trying to deload basically for the rest of this week. And then another set of workouts I'm going to deload. And then by then, I think I should be ready to kind of get back into the swing of things. Again, with this injury, I kind of like cut back my training days to 4 days per week. And then when I jump back into actually going a little bit more intense, I'm not going to go as intense right away. And I'm actually going to cut the volume to 1 working set per exercise instead of 1 working set plus a back off set. And then after doing that for a few weeks, I think I'll be fully healed. Because again, it's not really like a big injury. It's more of like a tweak. So when that's healed up, guys, I'm going to do kind of back into the swing of things with 1 top set and then like 1 or 2 back off sets kind of thing. And yeah, just taking it slow. This is kind of like a good reason why you don't want to like go too hard too fast, because when you get injured, like if you take your time and you do things properly, you're able to sustain your gains in a sense. And if you want to do too much too soon and you think it's going to benefit you, you might have a little bit of extra gains at the beginning, but then you get hurt and then that stalls you, and that might actually make you regress for a little bit, and then you can't progress. And then the person that's doing a little bit less the entire time didn't get injured, so they're steadily increasing and they might pass you. You know what I mean? So in the short term, you might think that doing more sets, more reps, going harder, doing more weight might be more beneficial. But until you get injured, then it actually sets you back in the long run and you make less gains in the long run. Anyways, it's just something to think about. Me lifting for kind of a little while now, like just over a decade, naturally. Some things that you pick up on. So I'm just gonna try to work through this injury. Should take me 2 weeks, and then yeah, like I said, just kind of lower volume to get back into the swing of things, and then I should be pretty much full force back to like regular training, regular intensity, regular volume without any kinks. And we'll just kind of go from there. Yeah, so those are the exercises. My tips honestly with back training is like, you really want to make sure that, and this is just training in general, you want to make sure that you're actually like feeling the muscle. And you have to play around with like hips forward, hips back, chest. Like you usually want your chest up, but do you want to be lean forward? Do you want to be lean back? Do you want to lean back at the end of the movement? Lean forward at the beginning of the movement, like I was kind of talking about before. And I'm definitely hoping to get some workout clips soon in the future to where I can actually show you guys this type of stuff. But yeah, just make sure you're really feeling the muscle, especially with your back. Like you can't see your back, and so it's kind of hard to connect with it. But throughout the years, I've just found different ways of connecting with my back. And a lot of the times, guys, and this really, like I said, it kind of applies to I would say most of your training, and it's that you really have to leave your ego at the door. If you want to feel the muscle and you actually want to make the muscle do the work, you tend to not need to go as heavy as you think, because when you go too heavy, you're actually using momentum just to get the weight up, and then you're not actually using your muscles to put the weight up, you're just using momentum and other muscle groups to aid that muscle group that you want to train. So then you wonder sometimes why your chest isn't growing. It's because you're hunching your shoulders and you're bringing in front delt to aid with the pressing, but your front delts are growing, your chest is growing, but your proportions are not what you want them to be, with your chest getting bigger and bigger because your front delts are also growing at like a similar rate, because on chest day you're activating way too much front delt. So those are all things to consider. Like if you want to make your chest grow, let your chest do the pressing. Obviously you can't fully take out your shoulders, but there's a big difference between pressing like this and pressing like this. You know what I mean? And there's a difference between pressing slow and controlled versus bouncing the weight off and just trying to get through a set, trying to get through, oh, I got to get 8 reps of this amount of weight, versus saying, I'm going to do this weight with this certain form because this is the weight that allows me to get these reps with this type of form, and actually making your muscle groups that you are targeting do the work. So there's a big difference between weightlifting and bodybuilding, and that's just something that honestly it just takes a little bit of time to figure out. And the biggest thing is, guys, you're getting in the gym, you're working out. That's the biggest thing. Like, you're in there, you're getting better. Anything that you do is going to make you get better, and as long as you just are willing to learn and improve as time goes on, and make tweaks and improve and learn, then you're only going to get better. But the key is you got to get your foot in that door and actually start working out, and then you can worry about improving your workouts and improving your form and improving your training style and then improving your diet and stuff like that. But you got to get your foot in, because in a sense, 1 foot in is better than no feet in, right? A little bit is better than nothing. And that's just what I kind of think, because if you can start being consistent with the gym, then you can start improving, and then you're improving, and then you're being consistent with good form and everything, and it just keeps getting better and better. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to be perfect to start out. I am by no means perfect right now, but I'm definitely trying to improve, and I'm willing to learn in order to improve, and I think that's a pretty big key there. So yeah, so just really focus on that back, really make the muscles do the work. Don't go super heavy. Like I said, kind of work with those rocking kind of motions, but don't crack with the rocking motion. Start with your hands, crack at your hands, and then finish with that rock to give you that extra squeeze at the top. It's something that I started doing recently, and it honestly feels pretty good. So give that a try, and hopefully it improves your back training. And yeah, so that's pretty much it, guys. I'm gonna enjoy this meal, watch a little bit of YouTube, and then see what else the day has to offer me. See you guys in the next video.